Hi, I'm James Ramsey, Group Product Manager here at GitLab for the create stage of the DevOps lifecycle. And this is the Gitaly 13.3 kickoff call. The Gitaly group works on Git storage related features at GitLab. And one of the features we've been working on recently is Gitaly cluster. Gitaly cluster improves the fault tolerance of Git storage by making sure that there are multiple copies of every repository. So by introducing extra Gitaly nodes and using Gitaly cluster, you could have 3 copies of every repository so that if one of them became inaccessible, one of the other up-to-date copies could take over. And this is really important for organizations that need a high degree of uptime, where an outage would prevent deployment, and that would be a potential problem. So we've released a GA of a generally available version of Gitaly cluster a couple of releases ago and been working on improving it every single release. Last release, we introduced an improvement called read distribution. So when Gitaly nodes are up to date and agree with each other for a specific repository, we'll redirect reads randomly across those up-to-date nodes, essentially spreading the load horizontally across all the replicas. So this is a performance optimization using Gitaly cluster. The other improvement that we've been working on, I've mentioned previously, is strong consistency. And so that means that when you push a change to GitLab via the Git protocol or make an edit through the web interface, it's the idea that that edit would occur simultaneously across all the replicas. Today, it's replicated asynchronously. So my write will only go to one of the Gitaly nodes, and then after my write succeeds, it'll then be replicated. And that means there's a delay between when I can do read proxying, and there's a delay where an outage, if that occurred, there would be data loss. So that's a bit of introduction on what Gitaly cluster is and how it works. Let me talk about what we're working on in 13.3. In 13.3, we're working on strong consistency as the #1 priority. We'll hopefully have released in 13.2 a beta version of strong consistency that works for a subset of write operations. We're hoping to expand that to include all write operations through changes that we've shipped in Git to add a new hook into the Git lifecycle. And we need to implement support on the Gitaly side now that that change has been accepted upstream into Git. And this will be really important because it means that more and more write operations will not trigger an async replication job, preventing data loss situations and increasing the amount of time that a read distribution can occur. The other area is continuing to improve read distribution. Our first implementation does have some performance limitations, which is why it's still marked as a beta, and we're continuing to improve it and monitor and test it in gitlab.com on a subset of repositories. And so we're particularly focused on improving the structure of the SQL database and tables that we're using, and preventing those routing tables from growing too quickly, changing too often, so that we can make it fast and reliable at very high scale. I'll switch back to the planning issue. So that's Gitaly cluster. Big area of investment. We've been working very hard on it, and it's improving very quickly. And our objective is really to get transactional writes and read distributions to general availability as soon as possible, because we know it's important to many of our customers. Secondary priority that we're working on is repository backups. At the moment, if you need to take a backup of your Git repositories on a GitLab instance, we have a GitLab-backup command that you can run when you've SSH'd into the server. However, for large GitLab instances with a couple of 100 gigabytes of repositories, just is very slow, doesn't really work. And there's a bunch of workarounds that we have in our documentation, including rsync and some other techniques to take backups, but we'd really like the backup task to work well. So we're working towards incremental backups. The first stage is actually to implement basic concurrency support. So what that'll mean is, rather than serially backing up one repository, then the next repository, then the next repository, it'll allow you to concurrently back up maybe 4 or 10, depending on the available resources on your Gitaly nodes. And the other aspect would be, if you've got multiple Gitaly nodes, you should be able to run backup jobs on all of them rather than just one at a time. If you've got 4 Gitaly nodes, why not run 4 jobs on all 4 nodes, 12 jobs at a time? So that should significantly reduce the amount of time to take a backup. And then in future releases, we want to look at incremental backups. So only taking a backup if something's changed since we last took one. And for low churn instances where only 10% of repositories change a day, that would significantly cut down on the backup time. So that's the second priority that we're looking at. And finally, we've been looking at partial clone and support for large files in Git for quite a while. And one of the key areas that we're looking at in supporting partial clone for large file workflows without using Git LFS is storing those large binary files efficiently. We'd like to be able to store them on cheaper, more cost-effective storage, and so would many of our customers. Object storage is great for big, large binaries, and particularly because large binaries aren't going to be delta compressed inside of the Git pack files. It makes sense to just park them on object storage. And the other aspect is using an alternative protocol to the Git Smart protocol that's better suited to large binary files that are resumable in their upload and download, and can be split into multi-parts downloads. So we've been working on a new HTTP driver, and this is a long running project where we're investigating its significant improvement to Git itself to support this, but we're continuing to investigate and improve this. Recently, we've been submitting some patches to the mailing list just around other improvements that we've noticed while we've been doing this investigation, but we hope to I guess, share a proposal with what this will look like more concretely in the coming months. And that is the plans for Gitaly 13.3. Really very excited about the progress being made on Gitaly cluster, and can't wait to give you more of an update in the 13.3 release post when we get the work done, and tell you where we're headed in 13.4 in a month's time. Have a great day, stay safe.